What is this world coming to? Picture this. You work an ordinary 9-to-5 job, and you get sick and tired of being told the same old boring investing advice of
live below your means, continue working diligently, and investing your money into the S&P 500, and in 20 years, you'll become a millionaire.
Ain't nobody got time for that. So you YOLO all of your life savings into a meme. You put all of your money into Dogecoin, and just a couple months later, you become a millionaire. And that's exactly what happened to somebody who bought Dogecoin in February when it was worth just 4.5 cents. He YOLO'd his entire life savings of $188,000, and you can't make this next part up. 69 days later, he becomes a millionaire, which is absolutely nuts and at the same time incredible. So I wanted to make this video just in case this happens to somebody else, because I imagine he's not going to be the only person that this happens to with crypto. So if you happen to become the next crypto millionaire, then you need to watch the rest of this video, because we have a lot to meme about and talk about. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the Doge. So in this video, I want to speak directly to Mr. Dogecoin Millionaire, or anyone who in the future is going to become a millionaire with crypto, whether that's with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or Dogecoin. So this is a true story. I first read about it on Reddit, and then Newsweek broke it, and then CNBC picked it up. And out of respect to his privacy, I won't say his name, even though those articles already mentioned it, but mostly because I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not gonna try. But so far, we know that he's 33 years old. He bought Dogecoin back in February. He bought 3.9 million when they were worth 4.5 cents each. He spent $180,000, and boom, he's a millionaire. And I like to think it's because he watched my Dogecoin video when I published it on February 1st. So he watched the video all the way through, he smashed the like button, and bam! He became a millionaire. See, magical things happen when you watch my videos and subscribe, like stupid card tricks. He's like, no, I watched Graham's video first. So according to the article, it says that he lives in Los Angeles, California. He has a job at a music company, and he first heard of Dogecoin from Reddit. Of all places, it's the place where we get our daily dose of culture from. And so he was inspired by the sheebs, and he fell in love with the idea that a meme coin, which started out as a joke in 2013, could become as valuable as it did. And he also fell in love with the community, which of course is Dogecoin and Satoshistreet Bets. But here's where it gets crazy for me, because according to the article, it says that he doesn't have any disposable income to actually invest. So here's what he does. He sells off his entire stock portfolio, which includes stocks like Tesla and Uber, and he even goes as far as borrowing money on margin, which is extremely risky, especially in the world of crypto, where you can get margin called, which basically means if your prices dip below a certain threshold, all of your positions get liquidated, aka sold off, and you are left with nothing. The only way you would ever want to do something like that is if you really are a huge risk taker and you 1000% believe that this investment would go up in value. And he did believe, because he had somebody to follow. The man, the myth, the legend, Elon Musk, the chief pumping officer, who tweeted about Dogecoin non-stop for the last few months, so he figured he's probably gonna pump it more. And Elon did. So mid-April, just as Coinbase was going public and everything was going to the moon, his investment became worth well over $1 million, which is pretty cool. So here's what's interesting. He says he has a plan, and his plan is to not sell anything until his investment is worth $10 million, in which case then he'll sell 10% of that, or $1 million, and leave the other $9 million invested in Dogecoin. This is where I wish I could speak to him directly and not give financial advice, because I can't do that. I'm just somebody random on the internet and on YouTube, but take it from somebody who's made plenty of investing mistakes, especially in the crypto world, because here's what I would do differently. First, congratulations on saving $180,000 by 33. That's a huge milestone. milestone that not a lot of people in their 30s can say they've done. I know what it's like to save 100K, 6 figures, by earning just an ordinary income of 50K a year. It is hard. As long as you live consistently below your means, you save that money and you invest it, it's possible. It's just very, very hard. But to get to $1 million in just 69 days, that's insane. Again, huge milestone. Congrats on becoming a millionaire and joining the 7-figure club. But let's imagine this scenario. Let's imagine that Dogecoin drops back down to 4 cents. What do you do? Because in crypto, we have cycles, right? Statistically speaking, the next one is supposed to happen at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year when we're supposed to get a downtrend. So that could very well happen in crypto. So how do you prepare? Because remember, I don't know how much money you make, but here's a few scenarios. Here's scenario number 1. Let's say you make 50K a year. I'm only assuming 50 because you said you didn't have any disposable income and you had to borrow money on margin to get to this point. So I'm gonna assume baseline average of 50K. So let me show you this interesting calculator, because if you plug in your age, 33 years old, you plug in how much your initial investment is, $180,000, and let's assume that you can put in $500 every month. That's basically the equivalent of funding an IRA, your individual retirement account of $6,000 per year. Again, $500 a month is what, let's say, you can do. So at this rate, let's assume that your rate of return over the next couple of decades in traditional markets like stocks or real estate or whatever you want to invest in is going to be 9%. Now, let's assume that the inflation rate is going to be 2%. So we want the return as high as possible, and we want the inflation as low as possible because it eats away at our purchasing power, right? So that gives us a real rate of return of 7%. I think this is very favorable because, again, 2% is what the central banks are telling us they want to have. But the reality is, if you look at anything outside of the CPI, the consumer price index, that is way higher. If you look at things like real estate or stocks, we know it's way higher than 2%. But let's just assume 2%. Again, real rate of return of 7%. So the next time that you're going to see $1 million net worth, assuming Dogecoin goes back down to what you bought at, is going to be 17 years from now when you are 50 years old. Would you risk losing everything you have now to not become a millionaire until you're 50? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But here's another scenario. Let's say that you earn $100,000 per year and you could save $1,000 a month and put that into stocks or whatever it is. So the next time you're gonna see $1 million in that case is 15 years from now when you are 48. So not that much of a huge difference. Now, personally, I would cash out 100% immediately, and here's why. First, good job on thinking about long-term capital gains, right? That means you have to wait at least a year to sell your Dogecoin, which means you would pay less taxes on your profits. But the downside is that you would have to wait to sell no earlier than February 2022. And by that point, crypto could be on the downtrend, and Dogecoin could go back down to, 4 cents. That's not out of the realm of impossible. That could very well happen. So let's compare, just for fun, 2 scenarios if you just sold everything and see how much you'd pay in taxes. So let's assume that your entire Dogecoin portfolio is worth $1 million flat, and your initial principal equity, or the money that you started with basically, was $180,000. So if you sold everything, that leaves you with a profit of $820,000, right? So here's how much you'd pay, assuming that you were to sell with short-term capital gains taxes. In the state of California, you would pay something like $391,000 roughly, which leaves you with a net profit of $428,000, which, if you add that plus the $180,000 that you started with, leaves you with an overall rough net worth of $608,000, which is still a ton of money. If somebody was to give me that money, I'd be like, let me think about it. Yes. But let's say you wanted to wait for those thick, juicy, long-term capital gains rates because you wanted to pay less in taxes, right? You would actually end up saving $134,000 in taxes, roughly, which means instead of ending up with $608,000, you would end up with $742,000. Now, is that worth it? I would argue it's not, because if you make an average income of $50K a year and you live in LA, it would take you decades just to get back to where you are, assuming Dogecoin drops back down to what you started with, or it goes even less, right? But if you make $250,000 per year and you're a very high income earner, then it would be easy for you to put away 50% of your income and just sock away 6 figures every year. And in that case, that risk might be worth it because you don't really need the money and you could take the risk, because if it doesn't go in your favor, that's fine. You can make it back in just a couple years anyway. So even that $600,000 is a ton of money, which gives you the option and the freedom to move to a different state, to save more money in taxes, to get a better job, to get more skills. Whatever it is, the point is it gives you more options. But let's say you're like, Andrei, I am a risk taker. So here's another scenario that I would consider. Well, let's say you don't want to sell all of your Dogecoin because you're super bullish about it. All right, that's fair. So here's scenario number 2 that I would consider. I would sell everything except the $180,000 that you initially invested. So from a tax perspective, nothing much should change from the first scenario, right? Because you're still selling $820, you're still gonna pay the same amount of taxes, you're still gonna be left with something like $608,000, assuming short-term capital gains taxes, and now you have $180K left in there. So because you believe it's gonna go to 10 million, which is 10x from current levels, that means theoretically your 180K should still be worth someday $1.8 million, which is a ton of money. But let's say you're like, nah, son. So here's the third way I'd go about it. And this is as risky as I'd do it, and definitely consult a tax professional because I just make YouTube videos. But the third way I would do it is I would just take $180,000 out. That's the initial principal value of your investment. That's just your principal, which means in theory, the IRS should not be able to touch that money because a return of principal should not be taxed. I could be wrong, and I'm sure if I am wrong, someone in the comment section will correct me, and if they do, I will pin that comment to the top to make sure you see it. Now the trade-off is your cost basis would obviously decrease, which means that you would pay more in taxes when you go to sell your profit later. But the upside is that now you're basically playing with house money, which is pretty cool. And I know that this scenario probably sounds the most appealing to you based on what you said originally of just wanting to keep your money in until it's worth $10 million, but for me, this is the option that I would consider the least. And this is because if you make an average income of $50K a year, roughly, and I would still treat this the same way if you made $100K, it would just take way too long to get back to where you were if you theoretically lose it all. Now, if you want to go the extra credit mile and save even more money in taxes, and I would really speak to a tax attorney that can clarify this point, but I would consider moving to a state with no state income taxes, because right now California treats your capital gains, that's money you make from selling stocks or real estate or crypto or whatever it is, as your ordinary income. So if you move to a state like Nevada or Texas, for example, you would actually end up saving something like $89,000, which is a ton. The only caveat, the catch, is that you're probably registered in California with your brokerage and you probably invested in California, so there might be exemptions that would not allow you to do that, but definitely talk to somebody that's not a YouTuber. But anyway, this is great because it gives you the options, and if you can live somewhere for 6 months and a day, that's all the requirement is, you get to save a ton of money. And the reason that I think this way of wanting to be ultra conservative and just sell everything right now has less to do with how awesome I think Dogecoin is or isn't, and more to do with relativity. E equals MC squared. If your net worth was $180,000 before this happened, and you earn anywhere between 50 to 100K a year, and you live in LA, then I would seriously consider going with that first scenario, just because $608,000, even after paying those short-term capital gains taxes, is still a life-changing amount of money that I don't think I would risk for the chance of getting more. Because the way I see it is, if I can invest $500,000 of that 608 into the S&P 500, into a stock like VTI or VOO, then in that case, I should become a millionaire in about 10 years, assuming a rate of return of just 7% per year, and you drip or reinvest those dividends back into the market, and the other 108K I could keep for myself, I could put into the bank, I could use as a down payment on a house. That's a lot of freedom. Because consider the alternative. You keep all of your Dogecoin money in there, and maybe this year, you could be worth $3 or $4 million because the market could go up. But maybe that doesn't happen. If it does, by the way, I would definitely consider pulling out. But if it doesn't, then you could potentially not see that money for the next 20 years. Now, is that worth it? That's definitely something to consider. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just a random dude on YouTube who makes videos. Now, if I could actually give anybody real advice, I would say, Don't underestimate Reddit. It's the best place in the world. Go check out Fatfire, which is the most inspirational thing you'll ever read. As always, don't forget to grab up to $250 worth of free Bitcoin using this BlockFi link right here, blockfi.com/Andre. Once you do that, go get 2 free stonks with Webull. By depositing $100 using my link down below, you can get 2 free stocks, each of which can be worth up to $1,850. Once you do that, track them with my Patreon spreadsheet, link down below. Love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the Millennial Money Podcast. We post on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. Love you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care. Seriously, consider it. Seriously, yeah.